What if the heart, the very organ modern medicine treats with a lifetime of prescriptions, was something our ancestors quietly cared for, using nothing more than what grew in their gardens and along their roadsides? What if the remedies that supported strong, steady hearts for thousands of years were never replaced because they stopped working, but because they couldn't be patented? You've felt it too, haven't you? That quiet sense that somewhere along the way, something simple was traded for something complicated, and not necessarily something better. Today, I'm going to show you 10 ancient remedies that may help support a healthy heart, naturally, the way they did for generations before us. Stick around, because number 7 is a spice so old it was found sealed in Egyptian tombs, and modern research is now circling back to it. And number 10 is a flower so common it grows on roadsides and lawns across the world, yet it was once dried and prepared specifically for the heart in traditional European medicine. Let's get into it. Number 1. Hawthorn, the heart's old friend. For well over 1,000 years, hawthorn berries, leaves, and flowers have been used in traditional European herbal medicine, prepared as teas, tinctures, and syrups specifically for matters of the heart, so consistently, across so many separate herbal traditions from the Mediterranean to the British Isles, that some herbalists referred to it simply as the heart herb. Hawthorn contains a group of compounds called oligomeric proanthocyanidins, along with flavonoids, such as quercetin, which have been studied for their potential role in supporting healthy blood vessel function and circulation. Research has explored hawthorn extract in relation to mild heart-related symptoms, with several clinical trials noting associations between hawthorn supplementation and improvements in measures such as exercise tolerance and certain markers of heart function, particularly in populations with mild to moderate concerns. To use it, dried hawthorn berries or leaves can be steeped in hot water for 10 to 15 minutes to make a tea, traditionally consumed once or twice daily over a period of weeks rather than as a single-use remedy. Herbalists have long emphasized that hawthorn works gradually, not immediately. Think of hawthorn as the heart's old friend, a thorny hedgerow plant that quietly stood beside the heart for centuries, long before anyone needed a prescription to access it. But wait until you hear about number 7. Because while hawthorn worked from the hedgerows, this next remedy traveled across deserts, sealed in jars meant to last for eternity. Number 2. Garlic. The pyramid builder's ration. Records from ancient Egypt describe garlic being given to laborers building the pyramids, not as flavoring, but as a ration believed to provide strength and stamina for grueling physical work. A practice significant enough to be documented among the supplies provided to workers nearly 4,000 years ago. Garlic has remained a staple across nearly every culinary and medicinal tradition since, from ancient Greece, where physicians prescribed it for various ailments, to traditional Chinese medicine. Garlic contains a compound called allicin, formed when garlic is crushed or chopped, which has been one of the most extensively studied plant compounds in relation to cardiovascular health. Research has explored garlic's relationship with blood pressure, with several meta-analyses noting associations between regular garlic consumption or supplementation and modest reductions in blood pressure readings, particularly in individuals with elevated blood pressure to begin with. Other research has examined garlic's potential role in supporting healthy cholesterol levels, with some studies noting small but measurable changes over consistent use. To use it, crushing or chopping fresh garlic and letting it sit for about 10 minutes before cooking allows the allicin-forming reaction to complete, after which it can be added to meals. 1 to 2 cloves daily reflects amounts used in much of the research. Think of garlic as the pyramid builder's ration, a food strong enough to fuel the construction of monuments that have outlasted empires, still sitting quietly in kitchens everywhere. Number 3. Olive oil, the Mediterranean inheritance. Across the hills of Crete, southern Italy, and Greece, for thousands of years, olive trees have been cultivated, and they're oil-pressed using methods that, in some regions, have changed remarkably little: stone mills, slow pressing, and oil stored in clay vessels. Generations of families in these regions consumed olive oil daily, often as the primary source of dietary fat, a pattern that researchers eventually came to study formally as part of what's now called the Mediterranean dietary pattern. Olive oil, particularly extra virgin olive oil, is rich in monounsaturated fats and a compound called oleocanthal, along with various polyphenols. Research conducted over several decades has consistently explored the relationship between olive oil consumption and cardiovascular health, with some of the most well-known long-term studies noting associations between higher olive oil intake and reduced rates of major cardiovascular events in older populations at elevated risk. Other research has examined olive oil's role in supporting healthy cholesterol ratios and reducing markers of inflammation in blood vessel walls. To use it, using extra virgin olive oil as the primary fat for cooking and dressing foods, roughly 2 to 4 tablespoons daily, as reflected in much of the research, drizzled over vegetables, bread, or legumes, reflects the traditional Mediterranean pattern. Think of olive oil as the Mediterranean inheritance, pressed from trees that some families have tended for generations, passed down not in a will, but in the groves themselves. Real quick, if you're finding this valuable, if you're starting to see that the heart was never meant to depend entirely on a pharmacy, but was supported for thousands of years by gardens, hedgerows, and kitchen shelves, hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this video reach the people who need it most. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We post every week, and we're building a community of people who are done being told that the only way to care for their heart is with another prescription. Number 4. Hibiscus. The red flower of the Nile hibiscus has been used in traditional medicine across multiple regions for centuries, including in ancient Egypt, where the deep red flowers were dried and steeped to make a tart, ruby-colored drink consumed both for refreshment and for its traditional associations with supporting health. A beverage still consumed widely throughout Egypt, Sudan, and parts of West Africa and Mexico today, often served at celebrations and as an everyday drink alike. Hibiscus is rich in anthocyanins, the same class of antioxidant compounds responsible for its deep red color, along with various organic acids. Research has explored hibiscus tea consumption in relation to blood pressure, with several clinical trials noting associations between regular hibiscus tea consumption, typically a few cups daily over several weeks, and modest reductions in blood pressure readings, comparable in some studies to effects seen with certain lifestyle interventions. To use it, dried hibiscus flowers can be steeped in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes to produce a tart, deep red tea, which can be enjoyed hot or cooled and consumed once or twice daily, traditionally sweetened lightly with honey, if desired. Think of hibiscus as the red flower of the Nile, a drink poured at celebrations for centuries, carrying within its color a quiet, steady support for the very organ that celebrations are said to make race. Number 5. Turmeric, the golden root of Ayurveda. In traditional Ayurvedic medicine, practiced on the Indian subcontinent for thousands of years, turmeric root has held a central place, used not only as a spice and a dye, but as a remedy referenced in some of the oldest medical texts in human history, prepared in milk, pastes, and teas for a wide range of traditional uses. Turmeric's deep golden color comes from a compound called curcumin, which has become one of the most extensively researched plant compounds of the past several decades. Curcumin has been studied for its potential anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, and research has explored its relationship with blood vessel function, with some studies noting associations between curcumin supplementation and improvements in markers of endothelial function, the health of the inner lining of blood vessels, which plays a central role in overall cardiovascular health. Researchers note that curcumin is poorly absorbed on its own, but its absorption is significantly enhanced when combined with black pepper, which contains a compound called piperine. To use it, turmeric can be added to warm milk along with a pinch of black pepper, a preparation sometimes called golden milk, with roots in traditional Ayurvedic practice, consumed once daily, traditionally in the evening. Think of turmeric as the golden root of Ayurveda, a spice so central to one of the world's oldest medical traditions that entire texts were written about it long before curcumin was a word anyone outside India had heard. Number 6. Beetroot. The nitrate-rich root beets have been cultivated since antiquity, though it was particularly in Eastern European farming traditions, where beets became a daily food, simmered into soups, pickled for winter storage, and consumed across generations as a dietary staple, particularly through the long, cold months when fresh vegetables were scarce. Beets are naturally rich in dietary nitrates, compounds that the body converts, with the help of bacteria in the mouth, into nitric oxide, a molecule that signals blood vessels to relax and widen. This process, sometimes called vasodilation, may help support healthy blood pressure and improve blood flow throughout the body, including to the heart muscle itself during physical exertion. Research has explored beet consumption in relation to blood pressure and exercise performance, with several studies noting associations between beet juice consumption and modest reductions in blood pressure measured a few hours after consumption, an effect that researchers have found to be relatively consistent across study populations. To use it, roasted or boiled beets can be added to salads and soups, or beet juice can be consumed in small amounts, around half a cup, a few hours before physical activity, or simply as part of a daily routine. Think of beetroot as the nitrate-rich root, a vegetable that quietly widens the very channels through which the heart sends life to the rest of the body. Number 7. Cinnamon. The spice sealed in tombs, cinnamon's history stretches back thousands of years, and it was valued so highly in the ancient world that it was included among the offerings sealed within Egyptian tombs. And later, during certain periods of history, its trade routes were so closely guarded that the actual source of the spice was kept secret from buyers for centuries, with traders inventing elaborate stories to obscure where it truly came from. Cinnamon contains compounds called cinnamaldehyde and various polyphenols, which have been studied for their potential role in supporting healthy blood sugar regulation, and because elevated blood sugar over time is closely linked to cardiovascular strain. Researchers have explored whether cinnamon's blood sugar-related effects might extend to broader cardiovascular markers. Some research has examined cinnamon supplementation in relation to markers including blood pressure and cholesterol ratios, with certain studies noting modest improvements, though researchers note that results vary depending on the type and amount of cinnamon used, with Ceylon cinnamon generally preferred over the more common cassia variety for regular use due to differences in a compound called coumarin. To use it, a half teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon stirred into warm water, tea, or porridge daily reflects amounts used in much of the available research. Think of cinnamon as the spice sealed in tombs, considered precious enough to accompany the dead into eternity, while sitting today in a small jar in nearly every kitchen, mostly forgotten. That's number 7. And if you've only ever used cinnamon on toast, you might be missing out on one of the oldest heart-supportive spices in human history. Number 8. Dark leafy greens, the field worker's staple across countless agricultural traditions. From collard greens in the American South, to kale across Northern Europe, to various leafy greens in the Mediterranean and beyond. Dark leafy vegetables have been a staple of working people's diets for centuries, grown easily in home gardens, hardy through cooler seasons, and prepared simply, often simmered slowly with a small amount of fat. Dark leafy greens are rich in dietary nitrates, similar to beets discussed earlier, along with vitamin K, folate, and various antioxidant compounds called carotenoids. The folate content plays a role in regulating homocysteine levels in the blood, an amino acid that, when elevated, has been studied in relation to increased cardiovascular risk markers. Research has explored diets high in leafy greens and found consistent associations between higher intake and reduced rates of cardiovascular events across multiple long-term population studies, with some researchers noting that leafy greens are among the most consistently studied food groups in relation to heart health. To use it, leafy greens such as kale, collards, or chard can be lightly steamed or simmered with a small amount of olive oil and garlic, both discussed elsewhere on this list, for just a few minutes, preserving more of their nutrient content than prolonged cooking. Think of dark leafy greens as the field worker's staple, a food so common across so many separate cultures that it's easy to overlook just how consistently it appears in the diets of people who lived long, hard-working lives. Number 9. Walnuts. The heart-shaped nut, walnuts have been cultivated and traded for thousands of years, valued in ancient Persia, Greece, and Rome, where they were sometimes referred to using terms that translated roughly to royal nut, reflecting their valued status. Interestingly, the walnut's distinctive shape, resembling, in cross-section, the structure of the human brain, and as a whole nut, somewhat resembling a heart, led some traditional systems of medicine, which often operated on principles of like supports like, to specifically associate walnuts with both brain and heart health, an association that modern research has, in this particular case, found some genuine support for. Walnuts are notably rich in alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid, along with polyphenols, concentrated in the thin skin surrounding the nut. Research has explored walnut consumption in relation to cardiovascular markers, with several studies noting associations between regular walnut intake, typically around 1 ounce, or a small handful, daily, and improvements in cholesterol ratios and measures of blood vessel function. To use it, a small handful of raw walnuts, eaten on their own or added to oatmeal, salads, or yogurt, reflects amounts used in much of the supporting research. Think of the heart-shaped walnut as a reminder that sometimes the old ways of thinking, even when their reasoning seems strange to us now, occasionally stumbled onto something true, simply by paying close attention to the natural world. Number 10. Dandelion. The roadside heart tonic, long before dandelions were treated as weeds to be eliminated from lawns. They were cultivated and gathered deliberately across Europe, where traditional herbalists used the leaves, root, and flowers for a range of preparations. And in some traditional European herbal systems, dandelion was specifically noted for its potential supportive role related to fluid balance in the body, prepared as teas and tinctures used over the centuries. Dandelion leaves are notably rich in potassium, a mineral that plays a crucial role in regulating fluid balance and blood pressure, working in balance with sodium in the diet. Traditional use of dandelion as a mild diuretic, something that may help the body release excess fluid, combined with its naturally high potassium content, addresses what researchers note is a potential concern with some conventional diuretics, which can deplete potassium levels, whereas dandelion's natural potassium content may help offset this. Some research has examined dandelion's traditional uses and found preliminary support for its mild diuretic properties, though researchers note that more rigorous human studies remain limited. To use it, fresh dandelion leaves can be eaten in salads, younger leaves are less bitter, or dried dandelion root can be steeped as a tea, traditionally consumed once daily. Think of dandelion as the roadside heart tonic, a plant so common it's poisoned out of existence in modern yards, while it once supported the very fluid balance that keeps blood pressure steady. Here's what every single remedy on this list has in common. None of them were invented in a laboratory, patented, or sold with a 30-second commercial. Every one of them, the berries, the roots, the seeds, the spices, even the simple act of walking among trees, was discovered, used, refined, and passed down by ordinary people over thousands of years, simply paying attention to what seemed to help. And again, when modern researchers go back and study these old remedies with the tools of clinical trials and meta-analyses, they find something worth taking seriously. Real, measurable effects on blood pressure, circulation, cholesterol, and the health of the blood vessels themselves. This is not medical advice. Always speak with a qualified professional before making changes, especially if you're pregnant, nursing, or managing a health condition. But what these ancient remedies show us, again and again, is that caring for the heart was never meant to be complicated, expensive, or out of reach. It was meant to be a daily practice, a cup of tea, a clove of garlic, a walk among the trees. This knowledge belongs to you. It always did. If something on this list resonated with you, tell me in the comments which one you're going to try first. I read every single one. And if you believe, like I do, that the oldest remedies still deserve a place in modern life, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so we can keep bringing this knowledge back into the light together. May your heart beat steady, may your garden grow generous, and may the old remedies never be forgotten.